working? Alright. Looks like everything's working to me. Okay. So, what are we doing today? I was going to make my Stargrave crew for this campaign today, but for the life of me, I can't find my core rulebook. So instead, we're going to plan all the other parts of the campaign, and unfortunately, I'm going to have to do this off of camera. So, what are we doing? Going into the new year, I want to start a big Stargrave campaign. That's going to be Star Wars themed. And I want to have it progress like through the ages, going from the Clone Wars to like the Empire era, right? Like I want to go the whole gamut, fight all the bad guys and stuff the whole way, and have fun with it. Maybe go through a couple different campaign things while I'm doing it, right? There is a full single player campaign for Stargrave, which is called Stargrave Hope Eternal. That's the one I'm planning to do when I get to like the Empire era, right? So we're going to do sort of like a canned campaign and go through each step of that once I get to that era. Leading up to that, I'm going to do kind of like interspersed little jobs and little campaign bits and stuff like that, set it all during Clone Wars. Now, let's take some notes as we talk. Let's do some notes. Gonna pull up the old notepad right there. Bop, 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 bop. No, I don't want to upgrade notepad right now. Thank you. All right. Boom. Okay. So, notepad. Okay. Let's see what we got. We got Stargrave campaign notes. We're going to have essentially like two eras, right? So we're going to have two mini campaigns, two eras, one Clone Wars, one Empire. Empire is going to be Hope Eternal, right? For the Clone Wars one, it's going to be pretty interspersed. One, so I can remember the rules of Stargrave, and two, just so I can sort of like get back in the swing of it, right? I was having a lot of fun playing Space Station Zero on the channel and sort of playing through that campaign. It was really good stuff. So I'm really looking forward to doing another like kind of campaigny sort of thing. Sorry, there was a piece of hair just like through the wind. Another kind of campaigny sort of thing. So that's the initial part for that. What is each one of these things going to have? So we are going to use the standard rules for players. So it's going to be a legal team, right? And we're going to use custom rules for enemies. Why am I doing that? The rules on Stargrave are pretty close to how like regular people and stuff behave, right? Like, there's not anything particular that isn't covered by Stargrave for the player that's not already in the base rules. Which, might I point out, the player base rules are actually available for free. So like if you wanted to be like a Jedi Knight or something, you could be, Psionicist, or like a cyborg, or a mystic, right? Like there are options there sort of to cover the big archetypes of Star Wars. So if you wanted to play like Han Solo, or you wanted to play like Luke Skywalker or something like that, those options already exist in Stargrave with the standard rules, right? A lot of the like powers in Stargrave are very analogous to like the stuff you see Jedi do, like pushing people, shooting lightning, throwing rocks, like really a masterfully crafted game. It's really designed to handle all that stuff already. What it's not going to do is what is not going to handle the enemies for us very well. The enemies that are in the book are kind of like generic archetypes that you can roughly apply to Star Wars kind of monsters, but not 100%. And I want my enemies to be very like characterful and very reflective of the story. So we're going to be using custom roles for the enemies. What does this mean? This usually means adapted stat lines from core enemies plus special rules. That's usually what that means. So if I bounce back there real quick, give me 1 second. Okay. Sorry, there are a lot of models for the droids. Okay. So I have a standard droid trooper. I have a spider droid. I have a droideka. Some things I need to repaint. Still don't like the lines of the droideka. I've got crab droid. I've got a commander droid. I actually really like these guys. I think they came out really well. And I don't like these guys. I really need to repaint them. And I've got a super battle droid, right? This is like a range of like how badass stuff should be, right? Right? That's a 6 enemy deep range. There is not enough rules in Stargrave to cover this range, right? In the standard thing, and to have them behave like they do in the movies, right? Like this thing isn't going to be super heavily armored. This thing isn't going to be super like destructive range. This guy's not going to have a shield. This guy's not going to have a shield. This guy's not going to be more armored than him. Like, you know, there are a lot of rules in the base Stargrave game, but there's not enough rules to really cover the range of weird shit that these Star Wars enemies can do, right? Especially these bigger stuff like this. Stargrave doesn't really cover vehicles and stuff, right? So if I wanted to have like a big boss fight against like an AAT tank or something like that, I couldn't do it in core Stargrave. Which is fine, right? Like, Stargrave is intended as a base experience, right? It's something you're intended to add on to, modify, right? You know, there is this weird prevailing idea, and it really comes from Warhammer, that everything has to be by the book, and, like, you know, it has to be standard. You can't deviate from it, or, like, the rules police are gonna, like, show up and kick you in the dick or something, right? But that's, like, not really a healthy wargaming idea, right? Like the idea that this is your oyster, this is your world, this is your creation, that is a much healthier idea. So it's one of the things that we're going to do here. So bonk. Sorry, you're gonna get dupe camera there. There we go. Okay. So, custom roles, adapted stat lines from standard models. Alright, so what do I need to do for these? Well, I need to come up with rules for a couple different types of enemies. Specifically, the battle droid, the super battle droid, the commando droid, crab droid. Should have thought through this Since I had so much typing, I should have brought my keyboard. I did not think this through. Let's see. What else? Droideka. Or the Destroyer Droid. And the Spider Droid. Alright. And then we'll also say AAT, which is a tank. Right, that's the big droid tank. Now, for the battle droid, there is a battle droid gunner and a commander, a sniper, bazooka, rocket launcher. There's like a chemical weapons guy, right? Like, as many variations as we can come up with these, they're going to add more flavor to the game and make it more interesting. Having generic enemies is actually one of the things that, in my opinion, kills most single player or co-op rules for games, right? The enemies not being distinct, I think, is actually one of the biggest problems. Okay, so now we have a gunner, we have a commander, we have a sniper, a rocket launcher, and a chemical weapons droid. I think that's all the droids I have. There might be one or two more. Super battle droids, they're only super battle droids. Commander droids come with snipers. I don't have any with melee weapons, so I'm not going to include them. Crab droid, Droideka, Spider droid, those are all standard, right? But I need to have slightly different rules for all those, and it should produce a crazy amount of variation for them, which should be pretty cool. Alright. So, that's going to be the enemies for the Clone Wars set. Now I'm going to have to make rules for custom monsters as well. Enemies. And then we're going to need to make rules for custom monsters. This seems like a lot. It's really not. It's basically just finding a stat line and tweaking it up and down a little bit. If you want a really good description of this kind of like making your own campaign rules and stuff, the Silver Bayonet book actually includes a boss section on it. That talks really well about conceptually how to do this within a game framework, right? So you don't wind up with stuff that's like just stupid overpowered. One of the core rules there is to not give yourself custom stuff, right? Make the custom stuff the enemy. Don't make it your ally and stuff like that. Okay. So, monsters. Okay, so let me grab some monsters. I'll be right back. Ugh. Oh man, I guess I really need to print out some more monsters. I thought I had more than this. I guess I don't. Okay. Bonk. Alright. I thought I had more monsters for Star Wars. I guess I really don't. I need to print some more out. I have a Nexu, right? So I'm going to need custom rules for a Nexu. And I have a Rancor. These are both from Faux Figures, by the way. Also, I am unnecessarily proud of this Rancor. He just came out fantastic. I am so happy with how I painted him. He is legitimately one of my favorite things I think I've ever painted. The like speckling on the top I just love. But yeah, I fucking love this thing. It's so good. Anyway, so I'm going to need rules for both of these, right? So, we will bounce back. Bonk. Bonk. No. Alright, so we're going to need rolls for Nexu and a Ranker. Alright. So we're going to need rolls for both of those. What else do we need? There is a potential for grabbing in characters and having them show up, which could be kind of funny, like Obi-Wan and stuff like that. But I think I'm going to avoid that for the first couple games because it's going to be, I think, really swingy. I think it'll be funnier later on. So we're not going to do characters right away. So no General Grievous, no like Anakin, anything like that on day one. This is just like what I'm going to need for day one. So let's make a note for that. In future, right? Add characters. Alright. So we need to do that. It just occurred to me, I also have an Acklay, but he's not painted yet. So we'll make a note of that, because we can still make his rolls. I just won't include him in any of the tables yet. I just won't include him in any tables yet. Okay. What else? So we have enemies and we have some monsters. Now, there's going to be a random event table, one of which is going to be enemies and stuff showing up. I don't want Rankers and Nexus to show up every time, so we're going to have to fill that event table with some more stuff. So we're going to need some more enemies. Really, the more enemies we have, the better. It's going to make each encounter more unique. So this is going to be other enemies. So let me put some of this stuff back, and I will come back with some other enemy minis that I have. Okay. Sorry, I was debating what I have. I realized I forgot to include some stuff earlier. So that's our enemy list. So let's expand the enemy list a little bit. Alright, I forgot I have Magna Guard. So we're going to have to include that in the droid list as well. So we're going to have to include Magna Guard. Let me make a note of that. Magna Guard. Okay, cool. Alright. Now, other enemies. For monsters, one I forgot to include. I have a bunch of rat ghouls. So we can have some rat ghouls show up as well. So I have to add that to monsters. And then we're going to have a pike leader. Pike gunner. There's the pike gunner. A pike sniper. And then a just pike like footman. Alright, so 4 different kinds of pikes. We could also, in theory, have some Mandos show up. Alright. Alright, we got some Mandos show up. And I have speeder bike guys that could show up just to cause a little bit of havoc. Alright, so that's a bunch of options there. Now this is going to give us a nice wide enemy variety, and then a good bit of options of what else could potentially show up. And it's going to be pretty good, because what we're going to do is alright, so other enemies, we have pikes, which they could be a leader, they could be a gunner or sniper. For monsters, we have to add Rakghoul. And down here we could have Mandos, or we could have Speeder Gang. The Speeder Gang. Let's fix that. The Speeder Gang. Alright, so that's going to give us a crazy amount of options, which is awesome. This is what we want. One is going to give us a lot of variety for our enemies, which in the beginning games are going to be droids, right? So we're going to have a crazy amount of variety there. And then we're going to have randomly attack whatever they're near kind of thing, or try to steal an objective or something, right? That could be our goal, right? Like we have a lot of variety here, which is really, really good. Okay. So, what do we need to do? We need to make, how do I phrase this? Previously, I really thought that random behavior tables are one of the most important parts of single player games. They are not. I was mistaken. The variation created there is not the most interesting portion. The variation of the scenario is the most interesting portion. The enemies behaving differently is less interesting. Literally just having them like take cover or walk forward or do like logical shit is faster, easier, and does not pull you out of the game the same way like having to go and check a behavior table and see what it does and all that nonsense, right? So we're just going to use a standard behavior table for them, where if they were smart, they would take cover. If they're not, they just walk forward and shoot. You know what I mean? So we're not going to make a random behavior table. What we are going to make is a random encounter table. Counter table, and we're going to make a random event table. The random event table is going to be rolled on, let's see, start of every turn. Okay, so we're going to roll this random event table at the start of every turn. And the random encounter table is going to be one of the events or one of the options on that table, right? And that random encounter could include things like the other enemies, include monsters, stuff like that. All right. Now we want to make our random event table a D6. Why do we want to make it a D6 when Stargrave is a D20 game? 20 options is too. It pulls you a little too far out. And having nested variety is more interesting than having like a table with tons of options. So if we produce something that is random 6, and then each one of those has random variation inside of it, it is a lot easier to modify each of those individual tables down from the parent versus always being stuck at having 20 options. Right? So what we're going to do is we're going to make 6, we're going to make ourselves 6 different options. Okay? Alright. One of the things that a lot of behavior tables do that is bad is they include null options. I want no null options on this table. I think null options are lame. People really don't get to play that many games, so when they do, they want something fun to happen. They don't want it to do like nothing. That's lame. Feels bad. Bad feeling. So, let's see. We're gonna have one of these be in. Conceptually, we want one of them to be an objective modification. Next, we want one of these to be extra enemies. We want one of these to be a random encounter. We want one of these to be a battlefield effect. What else do we want? So, an objective modification. What does that mean? That means we're going to do things like add or remove objectives on the battlefield. So typically in Stargrave, your objectives are like little caches that you need to break into because you're kind of stealing shit. Remove objectives. It could be like, oh, this objective, now gives you 2 if you get it. Or this one has a guaranteed chance of spawning an enemy if you open it. Stuff like that, right? There's a lot of variation that can occur there with objectives besides just removing and adding them. Extra enemies is literally just spawning more of the enemy team, right? Just more of whatever enemy type you're battling. So, keeping this generic is nice, so when I move from clones to maybe one time we're fighting just pikes to maybe one time we're fighting the Empire, I can keep that same logic in there and just update the sub table for different kinds of enemies. By the way, you don't really need to do all this for a custom campaign. I just am super fucking extra. And I want it to be super fancy, so I am gonna basically code a random table that's gonna run through all this. It's gonna be cool. And up available on my website with all of the stats that I'm going to also make. Pretty boss. Battlefield effect. Oh, okay, sorry. Random encounter. This we already talked about. It's going to spawn some kind of monster or something, right? These are going to be neutral enemies that are kind of going to do whatever the fuck they're going to do. Right? They might try to take an objective. They might try to kill a specific enemy. They might randomly attack whatever, right? Their objective is going to be completely random in the encounter, right? As they are just like a battlefield sort of random thing. Then battlefield effects, this is going to be something that blanket affects the whole battlefield. Like maybe the lights get turned out, or there's fog, or, that kind of stuff, right? Like some kind of stat modification that's going to stay on the battlefield for the rest of the game. Battlefield effects. 5 and 6, what are these going to be? We could do a stat effect. We could do a stat effect. This would be something like maybe for this turn, all the pikes are going to get +1 to shoot. Or maybe all my guys are going to get +1 to shoot. Something that directly affects our stats that's not sort of like, that's targeted to certain kinds of enemies, right? Like the enemy allies or the leader or the something like that, right? This is not like a blanket effect that's going to affect the entire battlefield like the battlefield effect would. And last, we are going to have some kind of reward effect. I'm making this up as we go. All right. Reward effect. This is going to affect basically what you get out of the match. This could be experience. This could be loot. It could be experience and loot, right? This is going to usually be some kind of plus or negative onto those. Negative feels kind of shitty, to be honest, so it's probably always going to be a plus, right? So if a game is going to last, let's say 4 turns, right? There's a good chance we're probably going to see 2 or 3 random of these, right? Because you would roll 4, so there's a good chance we'll probably see like 3 of them in one thing. Now, those 3 are going to have variation inside themselves. So, the event table is going to lead to each one of these as a sub-table. Now, and each one of those sub-tables is going to have effects in it. Now, this is like more of like a programming thing, because I am going to program this and put it up on my website. So every time you do like a match, or every time I do a match on the channel, I'll be able to come here, click the button, it's going to give me an effect. It's going to go and just spit out an effect for me. It's going to tell me basically what's happening that event, right? Which is pretty boss, right? That's what I want. That's good. So there's going to be random tables inside each one of these. I'm going to try to keep these as D6s or D3s, so you can use the same dice to roll them. If you wanted to like roll it instead. But the thing is cooler. Alright. So this is okay. So we need, I don't know if anyone really cares about the programmatic part of this, of planning this out, besides me. Because basically what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make a dictionary for all the events that can happen. So then when the random function triggers, it will pull from that dictionary a random event. I don't know if anyone else cares about this besides me, to be honest. I think this might just be the programmer and me being like, let's plan this out kind of thing. And so, okay. We won't plan that entirely out. This is the part that interests me, probably nobody else. So, alright. So we have how we're going to do all our stats. We have how we're going to do our team. We have the big change, right, for our campaign, which is going to be this random event table. It's going to play in every campaign game. Just to give us some variety. What else do we need? Okay, what else do we need? We have a little bit of a concept of what our campaign's going to be, right? We know we are going to start during the Clone Wars, and we're going to play through the Clone Wars through the Empire. Following that train of logic, that means that our guys probably need to be some kind of like rebel force, because it's going to exist through all of those eras, right? There's always guerrilla fighters that exist between those 2 eras. So that's what they're going to choose. That's what they're going to have to be. This, by the way, this is my captain. That's why I was showing him off. That's my captain. There he is. So yeah, so we're always going to have, right? We need something that can exist between those 2 eras, and these, like a bunch of rebels, can do that, right? They won't always be rebels, but they will throughout the arc, right? So they'll be able to fight both the Empire and the droids. So we know they need to be rebels. Our second game, as we went over earlier, is going to be based on Hope Eternal. The first game is just going to kind of be just standard stargrave matches between basically my guys and droids. just so I can get the hang of the rules again, reintroduce the rules. I haven't played a game of Stargrave in probably like 8 months, so I need to relearn it, right? So we're going to do just nice, simple little games. Nothing like super thematic and crazy like you'll get in Hope Eternal where you're like robbing a train and all kinds of crazy shit. You know, we're not going to have anything like that. But yeah, so let's jump back to our little sheet. Our little planning sheet. There we go. Alright, so campaign notes, 2 eras, Clone Wars and Empire. Standard rules for me, so it is a legal team. One of the things you always like to do for custom rules is generally don't give yourself an advantage. Especially if you're going to play with another person, it's not very fun. But we are going to Star Wars. The enemies, we plotted out some of the enemies. These are the droids that I have that aren't named characters. We will do named characters, but not in the first couple of games, so I'm not going to worry about them on day 1. Then we have some monsters. These are the ones that we're going to have rules for right there. And then we're going to have some random enemies that can show up to fuck things up. In the future, we're going to add characters. And then we're going to have a custom random event table. This is what's going to be on it. And then each one of these is going to be a sub-random table. So it'll give it 2 points of randomness. And give us a nice base. Sorry, hiccups apparently. Give us a nice base to give like random, completely random shit that's going to happen. It's going to be fun. So yeah, that's pretty much our whole beginning of the campaign plan. So right now my goal is to have all my terrain done by Christmas. So that's going to be for my Scarif table. So the first couple matches are going to be on Scarif, and then we'll move other places. My goal is to have that all done by Christmas. And then we're going to start the campaign after the new year. Probably that first weekend after the 1st. Right, so like the 7th or whatever is probably going to be our first campaign game of this, which should be pretty darn cool. So yeah, so that should be pretty good. If I do manage to get everything done, maybe we'll actually start it a week earlier and do like a New Year's Day like campaign kickoff thing. It should be pretty boss. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, that should be everything that I need to really start this campaign. I got to whip those rolls up. Shouldn't be hard to do. I'm going to take the standard rules in the book, modify them, good to go. Need to put my team together. Also shouldn't be hard to do. Whenever I find my fucking rule book, which I know is somewhere in this mess of a room. It's not with all of the other rule books, so I don't know where the fuck it is, but I'll find it. I will. I'll find it. And I got to finish that train. And it should be good after that. So that's my plan for that. As far as streams go, next weekend is Christmas. There will be a Christmas haul stream on Christmas. And then New Year's, there's either going to be the start of the Stargrave campaign, or actually no, we're not going to start the Stargrave campaign on New Year's. New Year's is going to just be a hobby stream, and I'm going to talk about like basically my favorite models of the year and my favorite games and stuff. That's what I'm going to do. So 2 kind of special streams because of the holidays. And then after that, we will start off the Stargrave campaign. Featuring my little beautiful Bat Boy. There he is. Beautiful Bat Boy. With his thermal detonator. There he is. But yeah, so that's my whole plan for this. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to call it there. Thank you guys for listening to me ramble for 40 minutes. I didn't actually do anything on stream today. I just sort of babbled about setting up, playing with myself. So that's kind of weird, but it is what it is. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and call it. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you have a good one, and